Hi, my name is Lily Carter, and I'm here to share the most life-changing experience I've ever had. On August 18th, 2015, I died. Yes, you heard that right, I was declared clinically dead. During that time, I had a near-death experience that forever changed my understanding of life, death, and what awaits us on the other side. I've never been someone who thought much about dying. I mean, who really does at my age? But that day, everything changed. I found myself standing in a place more real than anything I'd ever experienced, meeting someone I never expected to meet, and learning things about the future of this world that I feel compelled to share with you. I hope you'll stick with me as I walk you through the events of that day, what I experienced on the other side, and how it completely transformed my understanding of life, death, and God's incredible love. The day started out like any other. I was sitting on the couch in my living room, working on a school project while my mom baked cookies in the kitchen. The smell of warm chocolate filled the air, and the hum of life in our home was comforting and familiar. But later that evening, everything took a turn. I had been feeling unwell for weeks, with aches and fatigue that just wouldn't go away. My parents thought it was just a bad case of the flu, but that evening, I collapsed on the living room floor. I remember hearing my mom scream for my dad, and then everything became a blur. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. They told my parents I had an extremely rare condition, one they didn't know how to treat. I could see the worry in their eyes as they tried to be strong for me. My dad held my hand, whispering, "You're going to be okay, sweetheart." But deep down, I knew they were scared, terrified even. That night, as I lay in the hospital bed, I felt weaker and weaker. It was as though the life was draining out of me, little by little. I could hear the soft beeping of the machines and feel the warmth of my mom's hand holding mine. I wanted to tell her not to cry, that I loved her and it would be okay. But I couldn't. My body wouldn't respond. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was seeing my dad's face, his eyes full of tears as he whispered, "We love you, Lily. Stay with us." And then, it happened. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my hospital bed anymore. I was floating above it, looking down at myself. I could see the doctors and nurses rushing around, my parents crying at my bedside. It was surreal, like I was watching a movie, but the movie was my own life. I tried to speak to them, to tell them I was okay, but they couldn't hear me. That's when I noticed something in the corner of the room, a light. It wasn't just any light. It was the most beautiful, radiant thing I had ever seen. It was warm, inviting, and somehow alive. It grew brighter and brighter, filling the room with its glow. And then, before I even realized what was happening, I was being drawn into it. When I stepped into the light, everything changed. I found myself in the most breathtakingly beautiful garden you could ever imagine. The colors were unlike anything on earth, vibrant, shimmering, and almost alive. The grass was the softest green, the flowers every shade of the rainbow, including colors I didn't even know existed. The air smelled sweet, like a mix of blooming flowers and fresh-baked bread. And the sound, oh, the sound. It was as if 1,000 angels were singing in perfect harmony, their voices filling every corner of my soul with peace and love. I felt light as a feather, completely free of all the pain and weakness I had felt in the hospital. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt whole. As I stood there, taking in the beauty of this heavenly place, I saw someone walking toward me. At first, he was just a silhouette in the distance, but as he came closer, I recognized him instantly. It was Jesus. I'd seen pictures of him in church before, but seeing him in person was different. His presence was overwhelming yet comforting. His eyes were filled with love and kindness, and his smile radiated warmth and peace. He said, "Welcome, my child. I've been waiting for you." The sound of his voice filled me with a joy I can't put into words. It wasn't just a voice, it was like music, like pure love in its most perfect form. I ran to him, and as soon as I thought about wanting to hug him, I was in his arms. That hug, it was like being wrapped in all the love in the universe. Jesus took my hand and led me through the garden. The grass beneath my feet was soft, like walking on clouds, and every step made me feel stronger and more alive. We came to a large tree with golden fruit hanging from its branches. Jesus picked one and handed it to me, saying, "Eat. This is the fruit of life." I took a bite, and it was the most delicious thing I had ever tasted, sweet, juicy, and unlike anything I'd ever eaten before. As I ate, I felt a surge of energy and joy that I can't describe. As we walked, I couldn't help but ask the questions that had been burning in my mind. "Jesus," I said, "can I ask you something?" He smiled and nodded. "Of course, my child. What would you like to know?" There were so many questions I wanted to ask, but one stood out: when will the world end? Jesus looked at me with understanding in his eyes. "That's a big question," he said. "It's not something to fear, but something to look forward to. It means I will return to make everything right." I asked him how we would know when it's happening, and he explained, "There will be signs. You will hear of wars and natural disasters. Many people will turn away from God. But those who love me should not be afraid. They should stay ready and continue doing good." His words filled me with both a sense of urgency and peace. I realized that the end of the world wasn't about destruction, it was about renewal. Then, I asked, "What happens after the world ends?" Jesus smiled and said, "There will be a new heaven and a new earth. All the bad things, pain, suffering, fear, they will be gone forever. There will be no more tears, no more sickness, and no more death. Everything will be made new." As Jesus spoke, I could see a vision forming in front of me. It was as though I were standing on the edge of time itself, looking at a world transformed. The new earth was radiant, vibrant, and filled with peace. I saw people smiling, walking together, and laughing freely. There was no pain, no anger, and no fear, just joy and unity. Nature itself seemed to sing in harmony, with rivers flowing like liquid light and trees swaying in a gentle, divine rhythm. It was a place where everyone belonged, where love was the air we breathed. Jesus explained that this was the future for those who chose to follow him, to live in love and truth. "The old things will pass away," he said, "and everything will be made new. This is my promise." Hearing these words gave me a deep sense of peace and hope. It wasn't just about the end of the world, it was about the beginning of something beautiful, a world where God's love reigns completely. After showing me the vision of the new heaven and earth, Jesus turned to me with a gentle but serious look. "There's something I want to show you," he said. Suddenly, my entire life began playing out before me. It wasn't like watching a movie, it was as if I was reliving every moment, feeling everything I had felt at the time and, even more profoundly, feeling the emotions of the people around me. I saw moments of kindness that I had forgotten, helping a friend who was struggling with homework, comforting my little brother when he was scared, and standing up for a classmate who was being bullied. But I also saw moments that made me wince. Times when I had been selfish, said hurtful things, or ignored someone in need. I felt the pain I had caused others, and it broke my heart. Through it all, Jesus stood by my side, his presence steady and unwavering. He didn't scold or condemn me. Instead, he helped me understand that every action, no matter how small, has an impact. Your life is like a ripple in a pond, he said. Every choice you make sends waves outward, touching others in ways you may not see. After the life review, Jesus spoke to me about the importance of living with love and intention. He explained that while no one is perfect, the choices we make each day can bring us closer to God's purpose for our lives. You are loved, no matter what, he said. But love is not just something you receive, it's something you give. Let your life be a reflection of the love I have shown you. His words hit me deeply. I realized how often I had taken love for granted, both the love I had been given and the love I had the opportunity to share. As much as I wanted to stay in the garden, surrounded by the beauty and peace of heaven, Jesus told me it wasn't my time. Lily, he said gently, you have a purpose to fulfill on earth. There are people who need to hear your story, people who need to know my love through you. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to stay in his presence forever, but I also felt the weight of what he was asking me to do. Will you stay with me? I asked. Jesus smiled and placed his hand on my shoulder. I will never leave you. I will be with you every step of the way. The next thing I knew, I was back in my hospital bed. My body felt heavy and weak, and the pain was overwhelming. But my spirit was alive, filled with a sense of peace and purpose that I had never known before. I opened my eyes to see my parents standing over me, their faces streaked with tears. My mom let out a gasp when she saw I was awake, and my dad grabbed my hand, whispering, "Thank God, Lily. Thank God." I wanted to tell them everything, but I was too weak to speak. Still, I knew that this was only the beginning of my journey. The days and weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. My body was fragile, and every step toward recovery felt like a mountain to climb. But through it all, I felt Jesus' presence guiding me. I spent hours reflecting on what I had experienced, replaying every word Jesus had spoken to me. I began writing down everything I could remember, determined not to forget a single detail. My parents were curious about what had happened during the time I was unconscious. One evening, as we sat together in the hospital room, I finally shared my story with them. At first, they were quiet, taking in everything I said. Then my dad whispered, "Lily, that's incredible. I think you've been given a gift, a message to share with the world." When I returned home, I felt a strong urge to share my experience with others. I started with my family, telling my little brother about the garden, the fruit of life, and the vision of the new earth. He listened with wide eyes, asking questions about what heaven was like and if Jesus was really as kind as I said he was. "Yes," I told him. "He's kinder and more loving than you could ever imagine." Word began to spread about my story, and soon, people from our church and community were asking me to share it with them. At first, I was nervous. What if they didn't believe me? But every time I spoke, I felt Jesus' presence, giving me the words to say. Today, my life is completely different than it was before the NDE. I see every moment as a gift, an opportunity to reflect God's love to those around me. I've realized that living with purpose doesn't mean doing grand, world-changing things. It means showing kindness in the little moments, listening to someone who's hurting, offering a smile to a stranger, or simply being present for the people you love. I've also learned to trust God completely. I don't worry about the future because I know that His plan is good, and His promises are true. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I hope it's touched your heart and reminded you of the incredible love and hope that Jesus offers to each of us. If you've ever wondered about the purpose of your life or what happens after we leave this world, I encourage you to seek the truth. Pray, ask questions, and open your heart to God's love. Please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear this message, and subscribe to this channel for more testimonies like mine. Remember, you are deeply loved by God, and He has an amazing plan for your life. God bless you.